What are your worst college roommate horror stories? NSFW. This happened to my cousin. I was there to witness the aftermath. My cousin is an international college student who had just moved here and barely spoke any English. He moved in with another roommate to offset the ridiculous cost of a NY apartment. His roommate met a pretty cute girl. However, he discussed it with my cousin and agreed that there was something odd about the girl. He didn't want to fully commit to a relationship just yet, but they still hooked up. My cousin also said that his roommate still talked to other girls, but didn't move farther than that. One day my cousin and his roommate were having breakfast in the kitchen. The girl had slept over the night before. The girl wakes up and goes into the kitchen and picks up a knife and stabs his roommate in the neck 3 times. My cousin freezes in shock but then picks up his chair and tried to fend her away. She then takes the knife and stabs herself in the chest. Everyone survives. My cousin cried and called my dad telling him he hates America and wants to go back to China. She got mad when I moved her clothes to the dryer after they'd been sitting in the washer for a day and a half. I just set their wet clothes on top of the dryer if they didn't move it in a timely manner. If they complained, I would just tell them I don't know what in their wash is dryer safe or not. Besides, it was likely when my wash was done their clothes would still be in the dryer anyways. I am in college and my roommate currently likes to jerk off and leave his used cum issues all over the floor. I have told him to clean up after himself a million times. No flushing or throwing them away. Grosses me out so bad and I never bring my girlfriend to my house because of it. Buy some tongs. Next time you see one, put it in a random place. Shove one in his shoe. Put some in his backpack. In the pockets of his jeans sweaters. In between his bed sheets. Get creative. Man. Bitch didn't pay rent for 3 months and we didn't know until after our lease was up. Was just resolved 6 months ago and graduated 2 years ago. I had a roommate that would mix booze and pills. One night she fell asleep with her vibrator doing its thing. She woke up when the batteries ran out. At least she had some fun dreams. I've never resided in a college dorm, but I just want to share that once I was in a Skype call with my good friend. Who does reside in a dorm? Who left his mic on when he left for an extended period of time, allowing me and the other 2 people in our call to hear all his roommates, like 5 other dudes, arguing about who ate the last Pop-Tart. It got pretty intense. Is this what dorm life is like? Freshman year college had bunks. Drunk roommate comes home before me. He sleeps on top. He drank too much. He wet the bed. Like an open fire hydrant apparently. I came home later and sat down in a flash flood puddle on mine soaked to the core. Needless to say, I threw it in the shower and told him to get me a new one. Edit. Apparently this is not that uncommon. And the magic pee theory still holds up. Dollars to donuts. He just drunkenly pissed on it before climbing up to his. I had a friend who confusedly peed on the pile of dirty clothes in his closet once. Late to the game. But here it goes. My favorite roommate story is from freshman year. My roommate came home drunk one night and wandered into the dorm basement. She was too drunk to find a bathroom, so she peed in the dryer. Not the washing machine. The dryer. I'm half horrified, half impressed, given the fact it was a front loader. And in an incredible twist of fate, the next day she forgot her clothes in the washing machine. Some kind gentleman paid to put them in the dryer for her. And it just so happened that it was the one she peed in the night before. Sharon used to eat in her room and then slide the plate under her bed. She'd do this every day until my other roommate and I couldn't bear the stink anymore and needed plates for our own dinner. She also regularly invited her drug dealer boyfriend over to hang out in our app during the day. Several times I came home to find deals taking place in our living room. Eventually the cops were called by one of our neighbors and we, not him, were interrogated and searched. Oh, and there's the time she left a sanitary towel sunny side up on the toilet seat in our shared bathroom. I could go on. Dude shaved his chest hair in the kitchen. Also, had a super loud Asian girlfriend who screamed during sex. Even when we had people over. My freshman roommate installed a sliding bolt lock on the door to our shared dorm room so that I couldn't enter while he was in bed with girls he brought in, which was so random I could never tell when he'd be using the room. The worst part was when I'd get back very late, wanting to get in the room and go to sleep. And he'd have me locked out in the hallway, especially when I had an early class. Even when I waited patiently in the hall, he refused to unlock the door, until one night I knocked harder. And he threw a glass full of ice water in my face as he finally opened it. Did you ask to move or contact the RA or something? Or just take the bolt off when he was gone sometime? My roommate and his girlfriend's anniversary happened to be on Valentine's Day. On the morning of, I awoke to smell of chocolate fondue and noticed him making chocolate dipped strawberries. I commented on how nice he was for doing so. To which he replied, "Yeah, and if she's lucky she'll get a chocolate dipped dick after." How I thought he was joking. But later that night I heard a scream, not out of the ordinary if you knew their sex life. But that's another story, followed by the door slamming. I went on with my night and figured it was not a big deal. The next morning I saw him in our kitchen and he apologized for the scream. Me being naive asked what happened. His actual response: "I wanted to give her dessert. So I poured the fondue right onto my cock." He then had rushed to the hospital to get his burns treated. I could never look at him or chocolate fondue the same. PL. DR pouring hot chocolate fondue on your dick burns. And makes your roommate never want it again. Edit. My first Reddit gold is for chocolate fondue on my roommate's dick. How wonderful. Thanks Anonymous. I had a roommate that jacked off constantly. I would unlock the door, which was an old school push combination lock. So it took a few seconds, thank God, and enter. And he'd be shutting his monitor off with his hand over his pants. This seriously happened so much that I had to actually have a talk with him about IT after bringing girls over once in a while who would catch him in the act with me and suddenly no longer be in the mood. Edit. Don't have a problem with him wanking off. God knows I did it too. But I would catch him twice a week. If I gave you an honest guess, I would say he did it more than 5 times a day. I responded to someone on a comment below with an example of how ridiculous it became. Once he did it when I said I was just going downstairs to the dorm vending machine. Walked down and back up in like 3 minutes and he was hiding his shame. Who would catch him in the act with me. Nothing gets a girl in the mood like gay sex. My roommate once invited a girl that was kicked out of her house to stay with us. Keep in mind our dorm room was barely larger than a prison cell. I listened to them FCK on the bottom bunk more times than I care to remember. Your roommate definitely thinks you're the shitty roommate for not leaving when they wanted to have sex. One of my roommates was accused of ARPing the other during a night of drunken escapades. I hope you have more than one roommate. I had a housemate, 4-person house, who I asked to take care of my dog over one weekend. I never left any of the responsibilities associated with my dog up to anyone else because the rest of the guys were doing me a favor by letting me have him there anyways. This one housemate wasn't a huge fan of the dog. And when I came home after the weekend, there was tea and piss in my room where presumably my dog was kept most of the weekend. His food and water were in there too. So I guess that's something. He was really skittish when I went to say hi to him. So I think my housemate hit or kicked him while I was gone. This one makes me sad. Not a college roommate but RAF trade training. My roommate came back paralytic drunk, having already puked in the sink in the block shower room until it was full to the brim, only to then go on to have a nice long piss all over my TV and my shiny new Xbox 360. He was very apologetic and hungover, which was hilarious to watch in Fizz and Inspection Parade the next day, and cleaned it all up so I wasn't too asked about the situation. I literally just posted this the other day. But I had a roommate who refused to buy toilet paper. So finally I stopped restocking it. I would just hide it in my room and bring it in with me. She still never bought any. But she would still use the bathroom. Found out she was using old Jimmy John's napkins. But at least she had the good sense not to flush them. She threw her tea napkins in the garbage can. She also refused to empty the garbage. So I found out about her tea napkins when I emptied the trash and found them stuck to the garbage can. This was somehow not the worst thing about living with her. I left town for a few days and came back to the awful smell of an overstuffed clogged toilet. I asked my roommate what happened and he said it was broken and the janitor was away so nobody could fix it. I asked why he didn't and he said it was beneath him to unclog a toilet and he was waiting for me to return so I could do it. I asked him what he used for the last few days and he said the same toilet. He just didn't flush. Just learned he got married recently. Lucky girl. Not really a roommate but the kid who lived in the room next to me left his LimeWire public. Myself as well as a couple other kids on my floor discovered that he downloaded child PRN. We reported him to our pretty soon afterwards and he got arrested I think the next day. I lived in a house with 6 other sophomore guys in college. It was a hellhole. A few highlights. My roommate shaved his pubes and hair chest all over the toilet and left his winter coat all over the floor toilet. A different roommate was a drug dealer and a dozen frat guys showed up to straighten him out on a Tuesday night after he stole one of the frat brothers' laptops. The pube roommate poured bacon grease into a recently unclogged sink and it stayed clogged and turned into a swamp over the course of a month. The pube roommate forgot his keys one night and punched out a window to get into the house. We all thought it was a crime scene the next morning. The pube roommate ate the last of another roommate's birthday cake. What a dick. It's pretty bad when the drug dealing roommate sounds like the better of the two. My roommate has a pet lizard. And he just dropped said lizard's food supply of roughly 800 crickets in our apartment. This is happening as I type this. CNT ruined my George Foreman grill. Fken years I had it and that merkin destroyed it in one weekend. Edit. To the people wondering. I came back from a weekend away and there was this crusty burnt sauce of some kind all over it, like layers of burnt sauce. Whenever I scraped a bit off, all the Teflon would come off with it. I'd had it for years. One of those beasts that could cook 20 sausages and had a side bit for eggs. That merkin. Best insult ever. My roommate is obsessed with MLP. MLP curtains. Sheets. Blankets. Stamps. Paper. A hoodie. And even some plastic Ziploc bags. Even then, this is practically a blessing compared to all these other stories I'm reading. On the plus side, you'll never have to worry about walking in on him with anyone ever. My college roommate would talk to me for hours about God's love found in the Twilight book series. It was pretty fking horrifying. I drove 3 of us to the grocery store and on the way back I looked in the rear view mirror and the one sitting in the backseat was eating straight out of one of those tubes of raw ground beef. Came home from a night shift working in the campus nightclubs to hear running water. She had started to run a bath and then wandered off. Got stoned and forgot about the bath. The bathroom was flooded to about 1 stroke too deep and was about to overflow into the hall. I had to bang on her door to wake her up. And then give her instructions on how to mop up water and call the building supervisor. Luckily the flood didn't do any damage. But had I arrived home 30 minutes later, it would have overflowed into the hallway. And ruined the carpets. There are plenty of other stories about her. But that one really sticks with me. My roommate was a born-again Christian who did not allow alcohol or women in the room. If he saw alcohol he would go to the floor manager and demand a room check since we were not allowed on campus. The floor manager would come in and ask, "Do you have alcohol?" and I would reply no. The floor manager would try to leave and the roommate would burst in from the hallway and say yes. He does. But would not find it. I hid it in his closet every time. He never figured that part out. Literally the same process would happen with women in the dorm after 11 PM. Same 2-act play. Same hiding place. He would always scream about the women when they came in. "My mama didn't raise me to shack up with no woman," was his favorite phrase. I asked more and more women to come in and stay until exactly 10:59 p.m. every night. Eventually he dropped out of college from the stress. I guess I am the monster. You hid your women in his closet after 11 p.m. Honestly, my worst college roommate story is my first year roommate getting really drunk and breaking my bedroom door down because he thought I'd find it funny. My flatmate had sex in the kitchen while I was in the living room. Not good. One still owes me $900 in back rent and utilities. Another forced me to move out a month early because she kept starting fights. One still owes me $900 in back rent and utilities. Pretty sure it's just a loss at this point. Yeah. My dumbest roommates went to a club and thought it was a smart idea to leave the door to our apartment unlocked all night long. Without even informing me. Because they didn't want to take their keys with them, lol. Of course. When I see it's unlocked, I lock it and go to bed. Fast forward to 3 a.m. in the morning and I hear a loud knock to the door outside of my suite. Which is locked. There were 2 doors to this room. One to the suite. And one to the bedroom. I wake up and go outside and they start screaming at me for locking them out of the room. Mainly because you have to pay to get your door unlocked. And can't figure out that I couldn't hear them banging on the front door to the apartment when I was asleep behind 2 more doors. Vertical bar. Some people are too stupid to live. Who else is reading this thread and kinda half expecting to read about themselves? My roommate randomly looks at me, tilts his head, and says penis. You must assert your dominance. And respond even louder with penis. I went to college as a pretty naive person, virgin. Never had a serious boyfriend. Didn't drink or do drugs and had been pretty sheltered. Had a roommate with a long distance boyfriend. Was never a problem until one night when I woke up to the bunk bed shaking. And hear her on the phone. She was having phone sex and masturbating on the bunk above me. I was horrified. Started crying. Never went back to sleep. Of course I had a test the next day. She asked me why I was crying the next day. I responded that I was being forced to listen to something I didn't want to hear. Thankfully it never happened again. But we never got along great to start with and that experience made it even worse. Counted the days until I moved out at the end of the year. I don't understand the people who masturbate on bunk beds. When others are also on them. Why do you, they, think it's okay to cause an earthquake when people are sleeping? As a change of pace from the NSFW stories here. One of my roommates thought that the sprinkler head in his room would make a good place to leave a hanger for a couple of weeks. One night. It of course broke the red glass and released the floodgates in his room. We lived on the 2nd floor. So it flooded our apartment and the neighbors below. This was the weekend before finals week. Of course. Best part was. And the firemen arrived. The hanger was still hanging on the sprinkler. Edit. Turns out this happens way too often. You'd think people getting higher education would be a wee bit smarter. Hanger. I had 2 roommates. One who I'm still with best friends today and the other who is the subject of this story. He was black and a straight up ignorant asshole. He would always play the race card and then talk about how he and his homies would shoot their guns at the police in high school. So yeah, typical douche. But this story focuses on his violent domestic abuse to his girlfriend. Now don't get me wrong, his girlfriend was just an idiot for dating an arsehole like him. Anyways, one night me and the other roommate heard yelling and screaming from the dorm lounge that was next door. All of a sudden I hear, "Stop hitting me. Stop hitting." As it turns out, this arsehole punches his GF in the face more than once. I'll never forget that screaming. The next day me and the other roommate went to the housing agency at the university and told them what happened. And they did absolutely nothing. Eventually they broke up. And now that asshole is a lawyer. Only in America.